Hello, and welcome to the IAB Pulse, our video news show where we discuss the hottest and most important topics addressing the digital advertising ecosystem today. I'm your host, Pam Zucker, IAB's Chief Strategy Officer. Today we'll be discussing the concept of advertising for good and its three key components, which are 1, advertising that's good for all people, 2, advertising that's good for driving business, and 3, advertising that's good for creating the consumer value exchange. Joining me today in our discussion will be Laura Desmond, my friend and mentor, and the current CEO of Smartly.
It's great to be with you, Pam. You are very kind. I am always learning from you too. So thank you for having me join you today.
Well, good. I'm excited to get into this concept of advertising for good. So let's chat. As I think about advertising for good, it's an ambitious goal, right? It's about positive social impact, having a good message, driving people together. We live in a time of fragmentation and where there's a lot of opinions and a lot of, people don't trust each other. And when I think about advertising for good, some of the core fundamental things are about authenticity and trust and transparency. I would love to hear what you think about when you think about advertising for good, and what does that mean when you talk about it?
Well, I think advertising for good has multiple dimensions, but I definitely was drawn to this industry when I graduated from college because I did believe that advertising could be a great source for driving business forward. It would be good and fun for people to be able to discover products that they either knew they needed or didn't know they needed, but grew to love. And I also believe that advertising was important and had an important societal responsibility and could have important societal impact. That's one of the reasons why I joined 25 plus years ago. At Smartly, our mission is to transform advertising experiences for brands and their consumers. Advertising has to be great for brands. It's how you drive brand growth and love. It has to be good for consumers. You can't make someone in the digital age lean in to advertising or the content that they see unless they're immediately drawn to it and they believe it's good for them or it will help them discover something good. And I think there's also a very important aspect to this that we've only really begun to understand over the last 20 years of the digital revolution, which is you have to make the internet safe, secure, trusted. Where a brand shows up against the content it does is important. And how consumers believe the environment is trustworthy and respects them is important. And so we convened an Advertising for Good panel featuring the big 5 advertising digital platforms to begin this discussion. We think it's worth having, and we think when all 3 things come together, good for brands, good for people, and good for society, that more engaging creative and more opportunity to build business, brand love, and ultimate performance will happen. And then that's good for everyone in the advertising ecosystem.
Yeah, so when you talk about this panel you had where you convened all the social players, how would you say we're doing on the spectrum of advertising for good and transparency and trust? Are we making progress? Are we moving in the right direction?
I think objectively we are making progress. I think if you look over the last 8 to 10 years, there has absolutely been initiatives and demands by marketers and by the platform companies and a call by people to clean up the digital advertising ecosystem, more trustworthy, safer, secure, less fraud, and also more respect. I think where we are now is that consumers are calling for 2 things. They're calling for respect. Don't over-target me, respect my privacy, expect me to lean into things that I like, but not out of nuisance, but out of creative engagement. And then I think we're also at a point where brands realize in today's world of ever shortening attention spans, you absolutely have to have relevance. You show up in a lot of places, but frequency doesn't get you the lean in. It doesn't get you the engagement. It doesn't give you the discovery or the shopping or the buying. It's really important for you to be relevant and personalized experiences that show you understand the people that you're trying to target, and you do it in a safe and secure way. Each of the platforms brought very specific initiatives that they've been doing, and I felt, as part of someone who's been in the ecosystem a long time, the ecosystem's getting it. If we don't add value to consumers' lives, if we don't entertain and engage them, they're going to go elsewhere. And having a weak advertising ecosystem is not good for society. It's not good for small business owners. It's not good for Fortune 500 brands. It's not good for media companies and digital companies. It's not good for people. So we are all in this together, and I think we are making progress. The last 8 years since 2016, when arguably it hit its low point, I think we're in a very different place than then, but we must also stay committed and be responsible to a better future. And I heard that loud and clear at Advance as well. And I think maybe in some way, shape, or form, we'll continue to have the conversation, because all of the global presidents of the digital platform companies said, we want to come back and we want to do advertising for good next year as well. And that was great to hear.
Yeah. So you and I have been in lots of conversations where we've talked about advertising in right time, right place, right message. And from, your history on the media side, in my history on the media side, we've always been very tuned into right time, right place. And now with you at Smartly, can you talk about how right message fits into that? And how, relevancy and AI with all of the different components about what right creative message means, how you're attacking that?
Look, it's quite ironic. I've built a career, as you did, in media, and in many ways, getting right time and right place elevated to a status where CMOs and companies paid attention. And like you, I'm proud of that work. I'm proud of everything that I've been part of over these last 2+ decades. At the same time, when you look at what consumers are asking for in terms of the value exchange they want advertising to bring them, they are clearly saying, respect my privacy. But they're also clearly saying, we want personalized experiences that matter, that are relevant, that engage us. And so we're heading now into a new era of digital that really values messaging, values creative. We know from various studies that have been done by independent third-party research companies like Nielsen, ComScore, BCG, and Bain have released studies that creative, the actual message, is up to 70% the driver of performance, the driver of increased awareness, increased reach, increased engagement, and honestly, more buying power, more growth. And so creative has always been important, but in the last 20 years of the era of targeting and retargeting and data as a driver of analysis and understanding, I think we've lost our way a little bit. And consumers have now very clearly said, we want experiences that are personalized, that are relevant, that mean something to me, but we want our privacy rights and our fundamental right to decide if we want to lean in to be protected. I think the brands who walk this tightrope, who get the balance, will be rewarded over these next 10 years. Certainly with signal deprecation happening, certainly with privacy and government regulation happening, but mostly because consumers are saying, I will walk away if you don't get the balance between personalized experience, high quality creative, and my interest and engagement right.
And how will AI play into that with creative versioning and relevancy and that type of stuff?
Look, I think AI is incredibly important. It gives creators and marketers ultimately a different starting point. less focus on tedious manual processes and tasks, more focus on consumer understanding, more focus on insight and applying insight to the actual messaging, and more focus on test and learning around what type of creative and what type of messaging works. We've got great examples across Smartly with Uber, with Foot Locker, with Nike, where we've used AI to essentially generate lots of ads against lots of products sent to many different countries globally and learn very quickly what's working and what's not. When you can take 20 hours of work and condense it to one or two clicks, which is what we did with these clients, it gives creators and marketers a very different place to create and drive better understanding, better insights, and strategies moving forward. We have a responsibility with AI, though, Pam. You can't use it in a way that people are distrustful of. You've got to make sure creators' rights are protected, that IP in general is protected, that the models you're using are ethical. They're not sourced in unverified ways. We have a big responsibility ahead of us as an industry, and we've got to make sure we get these key fundamental things right. And we must. But when we do, I think it will unleash time and creativity to marketers, media professionals, agencies, and ultimately creators that will pay back in better experiences that will transform advertising and lead to more brand love and more growth.
So if that's our ultimate, goal here, everyone who works in the industry is for more brand love, more brand growth. How does advertising for good play in to building brand growth?
I think it recognizes advertising's impact on society and culture. Over 2/3 of adults believe that advertising plays a role in societal change. They recognize that it has an important responsibility in getting the right information out there, getting the right products and goods and services out there. I think in Western democracy, frankly, without the free exchange of goods, services, companies, businesses, people who have created a product, they have a chance to go to this marketplace to sell. People who have needs, they get a chance to go to this marketplace to buy, to learn, to discover. This is a really powerful place advertising has in our society. It is not just about selling. It is fine. We are all in that business. Capitalism is a good thing, and having a chance to build businesses is a great thing. But we do have a responsibility to society, and we have a responsibility to make sure that the marketplace of goods, services, and ideas, of entertainment and engagement is as safe and secure as possible. And that we do recognize the impact on society and the impact we make as a really important foundational part of the economy overall.
Yeah, and I recently, as a consumer, I will watch ads now, and I'll be like, "Oh, they targeted me. They got me right. Whoops, they got me wrong." And I'll see that. But one of the things that is most impactful to me that I see is the diversification of representation in advertising and in content, because that's what I think seeps into our brain and changes our perceptions, right? You see people of different cultures in ads, people of with different disabilities. I think the idea to normalize what many people are afraid of in the unknown is also one of the huge powers of what advertising for good can do in a subtle way.
Absolutely agree with that. Smartly commissioned some independent research for our advanced conference where we wanted to understand how adults perceive advertising's role. Do they see it, that it has a role for good? Do they understand personalized experiences? What do they want to see in terms of representation? And the results were really very positive. I mean, we have come a long way over the last decade for sure. And I think the digital transformation of the last 20 years has helped us as an industry represent underrepresented groups in a very powerful, impactful way. 74% of adults said they want more personalized experiences. They expect it. That's up 10 points in the last 3 years. And they want to see a diversified point of view that shows a brand gets it, right? You know, in the era of TikTok, in the era of shorts and reels, you have a limited amount of time to hook somebody. We always talk about it as smartly as stopping the scroll. If we help our customers and clients create engaging, beautiful advertising that's personalized, it will stop the scroll because it will generate interest, engagement, curiosity. These are the bedrocks of great advertising. And I don't think the last 20 years has always stood out as incredible advertising in the digital ecosystem. You just said, oh, that ad targeted me. Oh, that ad got it wrong. Oh, that ad missed the point. Oh, I just bought that product. Now I'm seeing it again. You know, what Smartly's trying to do with our integrated workflow by putting right time, right place, right message, media, creative, and intelligence together, we're trying to avoid that complexity and sometimes that messy middle. We're actually trying to make it a lot easier for creators and marketers and media professionals to understand where's your audience, what's the message they need to see, learn quickly, and then expand the conversation through content and creative as opposed to narrow it down with the same ask. And that's a fundamental shift. But I think, as we talked about before, the next 10 years are not going to be the last 20. Consumers are calling for change. The brands who get the tightrope between relevance and respect, who understand how to do marketing a new way by bringing it all together and learning from it in real time, I think will win. And that's what we want as craftspeople in this business.
So I've heard Smartly talk about this tightrope. Can you expand on that a little bit and share what you mean by the tightrope?
So it's seemingly hard, right, to give a person a personalized, relevant experience, but at the same time respect their privacy. You know, the last 20 years have been about let's get the targeting right and the message will just come along. That led to matching luggage. And a lot of people don't love matching luggage. That led to a lot of display and a lot of frequency, which led to even more things like frequency caps that weren't really giving consumers what they wanted, which was beautiful, engaging advertising around products that they either loved, wanted to love, or needed to know about. You know, our view is if you gather data around what people engage in, I mean, we know, I mean, Smartly measures about 92 billion creative signals on behalf of its 700 plus clients a month. We have a fairly good understanding what consumers want to engage in. So our approach to content and the way the platform works is to learn by what people are leaning into and engaging with and do more of that, but personalized at a scale that makes the ads more interesting and more relevant each and every time you see them, as opposed to the same matching luggage. So it works the way, in many cases, I believe, that advertising is intended to. Learn from what people want to engage in, figure out the place and the time that they're doing it and how they're doing it, and then give them more deep, rich, contextualized experiences to get them through the funnel. Our view, my view, is that the marketing funnel is collapsing. Upper, mid, lower funnel are no longer these linear stages that everybody just wants to walk through in a linear, glide pathway. It's collapsing. It's a squiggly line. Consumers expect different types of content, more around the quality of the product, introducing the product in the upper funnel, and they expect messaging to become different as they move through the consideration, that interest, and that intent phase. And so content literally is now the most important thing to get people to engage and work through the funnel as quickly as possible. And that takes a technology platform like a Smartly. It takes understanding the APIs and how to sit and partner with the platform companies so that you're getting all of that signal and you can feed it through a tech platform to the actual users of the platform. In our case, our 700 plus Smartly clients. And once you begin to understand you have to work differently, you can balance that tightrope. But you won't balance the tightrope if you're back in the old era. It is a new era of how to integrate media, creative, and intelligence, underpinned by a technology platform that can work in real time and learn as it goes.
So I would imagine with your partners, you have seen also a significant transformation in how marketers, creatives, and media work together, right? Because they can no longer work in isolation, but they really have to be on the same page. Or at least that's what I would suspect. Have you seen that transformation happening in the marketers that are really leaning in and having different types of relationships with their creative agencies and their media agencies?
Absolutely. I think the smartest marketers who are ahead of this curve understand that the opportunity is to use software to enhance collaboration and integration. We have some clients who have designers using the software at the same time as the creatives writing the updated copy and messaging at the same time as the media people. They are sometimes in a room together, and there's a lot to be said for how the pandemic kind of siloed our business, and now we have to break those silos apart. Sometimes they're in a room together using our software or using a company's software and working together virtually and physically. But I think that the more sophisticated marketers that we have worked with for a long time, they understand that true change and true performance is unlocked when the creatives and the designers can speak media language, and the media professionals can speak creator and designer language. And they're able to collaborate around what they're seeing in real time and make adjustments, tweaks, take advantage of opportunities. And that's why tech platforms with a single workflow end to end with all of these players at different parts of the software making decisions, but doing it in a unified way. That's why I think this is so important. This is how the business is meant to work. Ideas, integration. You see consumers follow something. You give them more of what they're engaging in, not less, not what you think, but what they're telling you. And I think that can lead to a renaissance in this industry. Advertising does play an incredibly important role. We talked about it in society. Consumers expect it in business. Brands need it for creators and business people, and the ecosystem of media and digital companies. It's incredibly important that we get it right because it is a cornerstone of free markets. But you have to show up. You have to show up a different way now because of the consumer tightrope we talked about. And brands, I think, increasingly are getting it.
We have talked for a long time about put the consumer at the center, put the consumer first.
Yeah.
And I think as we do that in both media and creative, we will move towards advertising for good. So with that, I want to say thank you very much for spending these 20 minutes with me. You always have very insightful things to say, and I'm always grateful for that. So thank you for sharing your ideas. Thank you to the listeners who are listening in. It's been a pleasure hosting IAB's Pulse Let's Chat, and we'll see you soon on our next episode. So thank you.